Welcome. Today I actually did an in-person interview with Ariel Hooper. She was a previous guest on my show. She's also been featured on the Jeff Mara podcast. She had a near-death experience where she came out of the game completely and discovered that we are all in pods experiencing a simulation in this lifetime. She travels across the country living in the back of a van, and she came and stopped into Vegas for a little bit, and I went and met up with her, and we sat in the back of her van and did an interview. Super amazing woman. Very, very interesting, informative interview. She has a wealth of wisdom, knowledge, and information, so make sure you watch till the end. Hello, we are here in person with a previous guest, Ariel Hooper. She is the guest that had a near-death experience and discovered that we are living in a simulation.
Yes.
And we're here for another interview. So how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a little strange being in Vegas, but here I am.
Yeah. This is a strange place to be in. I think this is one of those places that kind of has like a stigma attached to it for being like the Sin City and whatnot. But as a matter of fact, a guest that I interviewed yesterday, Jim Bruton, before I pushed record, we were talking about that, and he was saying the same thing, that there's an energy about this place that I feel like certain people are drawn to for some reason.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. I noticed that. And then I went to a gathering last night, and I was just looking at the different groups that were there, and it was quite unique. And I would say there's probably two separate vibrations here at the same time.
Really?
Because, I mean, you can see inside the city, I guess, because I went inside. I went to this, it was a VIP party, so you're getting to know some of the people that are there, and you're seeing like that there are some collective business people here that are not here for some of the, maybe the Sin City stuff. You know, there's not all of that here. There's a bit of mix, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems to be like people seem to come here for business meetings and for moving into different atmospheres of doing. There's all kinds of conferences that happen here, so you can't say it only collects that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It to me, I don't know. I really feel like on the journey. I don't know how much you know about me or my journey, but my journey began back in 2015 when I went homeless and lost everything.
Yeah.
And then at that point, like, it was either let go of the wheel or die.
Oh man, I know that one.
Yeah, and I ended up just being a feather in the wind.
Yeah, that's what I had
all
to
over the
become,
country.
dust in the wind. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I'm one of those people that for some reason I have this weird energy, and
Yeah.
wherever the universe needs me, it's like I need your energy here.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can say I'm dust in the wind. People have my friends always have it, instead of where's Waldo, where's Ariel.
Okay.
And the guesses, they even have guesses if they can figure out where I'm at right now, because no one, I mean, even my closest friends, it's a game. They love to, I wonder where she's at right now. Like, where'd the wind blow her this time? There's always something that happens. I always end up somewhere for a reason. So, you know, I came here for a specific reason. I had a couple of things that were supposed to happen, and I came early because I was supposed to meet up with someone and stuff. So that didn't happen. Something totally opposite happened because everyone's schedules got mixed up. And then some of my friends would have gone and responded in the sense of saying, oh, well, man, what a waste. I'm like, nothing's ever a waste. I obviously was meant to go there.
Mm-hmm.
If I went there and I got there,
Yeah.
here I am. And then, you know, sure enough, I end up at an event that opens up doors for things that I do. So, you know, it's not, wasn't a waste.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the dust in the wind. It gives you a different perspective, because we're not in control anymore. We let go of that.
Yeah.
We realize we don't have control of this. We cannot control the chaos going on around us, but we can become the eye of it. I came to the letting go because of facing God in the face-to-face. But I still had to come back here for 2.5 years and process all that shit. And it was a lot to come into this perspective and into this skin, because we have cell memories. So you're now not only faced in the realms, shadows beyond shadows of everything, and then coming back with that fullness of, because you asked to come back with that fullness. I don't know if that was wise sometimes. And you come into this form now, from a whole different form. It's a shocker. And you have to concentrate to keep yourself in the dust of the wind, because the skin, we have this habit of wanting control of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to see in the perspective of realizing, okay, if you look in the perspective of assimilation, then that's a game. You think of a game, you think of the character. The only thing you have ability to move around in games is that character. And you get to put what gear you're going to wear as that character. And letting go, getting to that place of letting go, I'm sure you felt like it was the worst thing in the world. It was the most torturous experience. Like dying to our egos and soul is like, when people tell me they're awake and they say that it with excitement, or they said that their ego died and they say it with excitement, I'm like,
yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
We cry our eyes out because it's not forgotten.
Yeah.
That experience of what it's like a birthing experience. And if you think about, you have children, I have children, you watched your wife give birth, you were there for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That don't look like it's fun. It's pretty torturous, right?
Yeah.
And that's this experience in awakening. It's torturous to lose what you know and understand. And you're ripped from all of that into this world of you see all things. I was sitting in San Diego with nothing. This van broke down after going across this country 5 times, helping all these people. I gave everything away. It even got as far as someone put stuff in my water, and it got me and my dog really sick.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like that's how far I got, to the point of being ripped to the bottom. I thought, dying was the bottom of the bottom, but here's another expression of the bottom with the body, like, and the physical experience. But to have a mindset that I have now. And it was the funniest thing, because I was sitting there going, I'm stuck in San Diego. My van is broken down. I've literally spent every penny I have but $100 because the mechanic decided to not leave me with nothing. And the van's still not fixed. And then I was like, a stranger just knocked at the door, handed me $500. I went to a meeting that ended up, everyone put me on the floor to showing everyone who I was and all the experiences I've had and what I've created and what I did across the country. And then calls started coming in of all these people that had miraculous miracles from the things we were doing. Next thing I know, I'm being thrown in front of a bunch of people that want to build holistic centers and bring things together, That's dust in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make that stuff happen.
Yeah.
And I'm getting flown out on a private jet to go meet someone who we helped.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of dust in the wind. See, from what I've learned on my journey, those types of things are trying to happen for you, but when we try to control, we stop it from happening.
We do. We get in the way.
Yeah.
We totally do. We totally get in the way because we're trying to control something we can't.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of realizing what we can control, and that's this.
Yeah.
This person, this being. And we're always, people are always running. We're always running. Mm-hmm. We know, you're running, because if you've come to the place of getting that awakening where you're now dust in the wind, you knew you were running the whole time, because you find the mirrored image. You find the image of who you are, right? When you wake up, you're like, oh dang, I let myself get to this and I was this. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But you step into it and then it's like the world unfolds. Why? Because you now see. We think we're seeing in this chaos where we're running. Oh, I see that ahead of time. I'm going to run now because I know what happened last time.
Yeah.
Because you're just causing it to repeat.
Yeah.
You're writing that to happen.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that. That's the thing with waking up. When we let go, we all of a sudden realize, oh, it was so simple. We were already in the entire thing. We had it all right here this whole time. We weren't without, but we had to come to the place of being stripped of everything to realize we had it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of like what it was for you when you came to that?
Yeah. I don't know. I was one of those types of people. A lot of people say that their awakening process makes them go crazy. Mine was kind of backwards. I was crazy and really fucked up in the head. Like, because I'm like, something's wrong here. This is not, none of this is right. This is fucked up. And, you know, back in the day, back in like the 90s and early 2000s, you were just made fun of and called crazy and stuff like that. And then once I started finding out and started awakening, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And once I started hearing, you know, couple of the conspiracies, I'm like, that makes sense. Oh, and then my head kind of leveled out. It was weird. It was really strange.
It does. It levels out, and all of a sudden you have all this intellect that you didn't know was there before.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, that's what I feel. I felt like before, like, it was like almost like the picture of everything was starting to express itself, but you're still kind of not at that calm state. You're still running around. Am I really... is this what I'm seeing? Is it not? You know, and even, is this me? Is this not? You go through all those things, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, clarity, and it's like this bliss, this peace. And it's like you're able to collect all the thoughts that were just scrambled all over the place. Because it was an unknowing you were walking in. And then you all of a sudden walking in that place of knowing.
Yeah. Was it your near-death experience that really helped this for you? Or because I sit and think about it, and I picture being in your position, and you say that you were laying there in hospice already paying for your funeral. Like, just, I'm like, oh my fucking God, I couldn't even imagine that.
It was hard. I mean, being in your 40s and you're like, shit, my kids are, you know, they just became, they just both were young adults. They're still young adults. But to think about, like, they already lost their dad, and then now it's me, and then to see them, like, the emotions of it. To be there on the end of carrying all these different emotions that come to you, and that you are going through yourself because you're facing everything. Like, it's like a ton of bricks, right? And then you're laying there, and you there's no escape. You realize, shit, I can't get out of this. Like, this body's failing me, and you better deal with you. You know, and then you're sitting there. It was weird being a pastor too, because I sat there as a Christian, you know, very religious. You know, I believe in God 100%. All of that exists, Trinity, all that exists, but not in the format that religion created. And so your mindset in that. I mean, I wonder how many people have passed being in my position, being religious and loving God as much as I did. If they were all to come back, like most that do, they don't stand on the stage anymore. But if they were to come back after the process of what they went through in their mindset as a religious concept of what you put, of what you think is there, and then die in that, and then to be really honest about what you really went through in there, no one's telling that from the bedside. They're just being as kind, or whatever their position is. They're not always telling the depths of it, and I know that because I was in it. I didn't tell everything I was thinking. I was thinking a lot of crazy, scary stuff. Like, what the hell is next? I got no option to go live a life a little bit before that. It's gone. So it was not easy. It is an awakening process, but I was on a huge journey of a process before that, right? Because in Canada, my health, I have so many, in California, I'm labeled the most complex health. So I have several diseases in one body. I have crazy stuff that happens. And in Canada, they got to the point that they didn't know what to do with me, because I did end up having Lyme, and Canada doesn't do Lyme. They don't know shit about it, and if you got it, they just leave you. And so it got to the point where one of my doctors said, if you don't leave this country and find someone to figure out what's wrong with you, and I think you have this, but no one's gonna do anything about it here, you maybe got 6 months. And I had to leave my youngest son in his last year of high school to do that, to try and save my life. So I was already on a journey before I got into hospice. And I was already on this awakening journey where I literally pulled myself away from even... The only thing I would do at church was go to listen to the music, but the moment anyone got on stage to preach, I was out of there. And I even had front row seats at the biggest churches. So, like, when I got up and left, it was noticed, because they're on camera, everything. And they had front row seats with all of them, because they said I could have it till I died, but I don't think they realized I was going to come back.
Yeah, you didn't realize that either at the time, did you?
No, to be honest, I thought this was it, you know. I have had near-death experiences before, but they were like minute things, and stuff that happened when I was a kid. I drowned, all these different things, right? But they were just like, you were gone for a minute. And I had one like a few years before in 2016, and I definitely saw like Earth and the beginnings and what it looked like and all that. Kind of had like a whole kind of a fast, really quick experience of seeing the first breath of the universe. So that was the beginning of my shaking, which is why when I did go searching for my health, I decided to live off grid. Spend that time away from the church. See if what I experienced in that brief, which felt like a dream kind of experience, it wasn't like what this was. If any of that was legitimate, you know. So I started asking questions and reading a bunch of theology, reading all these old books, ancient texts, and then just meditating on a freaking amazing view of a mountain every day. And I did that for about a year. And I lived on this mountain where they rescue kids from sex trafficking and work with high-risk kids. And I was a teacher, and then I was their bulldog because I was contracted, so I don't have to follow the rules. So I could say the things that needed to be said to the kids to help bring them back from running away into the wilderness, maybe not making it out alive, right? So I did that, and that was probably a big, huge thing that got me to begin to see the universe the way I did. But man, when you go to face and you go through all these dimensions and you experience what you're experiencing here, you take a scapegoat route where you're willing to see, but even knowing that no one else around you is going to see, which means sometimes you get a beating for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that through several dimensions. So returning was, that was definitely the icing on the cake. I mean, once you got that, what else can you go to after that?
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things I think about your story is that most of the people, when you hear this, I know there's not a one size fits all for everybody. It's very unique to the individual, but typically, usually, most of the time, there's one thing in common, and that is that the individual will hear, it's not your time, you're not supposed to go now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that wasn't the case for you. It was your time, and you chose to come back. And that's what's so fascinating, I think.
And I sometimes, I do have moments where I'm in it, and it's beautiful because I have a small, I just call them my union table, a small group of people that have known me for a long time and sit at my table. And I told them of the promise that I said in order to come back. So they knew the details of why I did this. So I said to them, I'm going to go through all these things. And when I go through them, I need someone to call to remind me why I said yes, dude, because they're going to suck. And so I would tell them ahead of time. Like they would almost know my year ahead of time, okay. And then boom, it would happen. And I'd be in it and I'd call them and they'd remind me, what'd you say yes to? And then they'd start laughing. What'd you go through to even do this? Oh yeah, I went through a lot to do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. They've kept me pretty stable, I would say, when I hit those storms that I knew were gonna happen and knew were gonna come. Because it don't matter how much you know. When you're in it, it's a whole other game.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you know it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You could even tell yourself while it's happening, I remember this was going to happen. But your body and your emotions and your physical self still have to go through it all. And you still have to decide in that moment, am I gonna sit in the bliss? Or am I gonna bite the apple and engage and fuel the fire of chaos? So it's not an easy walk. I've definitely fueled the fire a few times in this walk.
Yeah. Would you say that you like rewrote a new plan before you came, or
like what do you mean, like a plan of action, like what I was gonna do?
Yeah, like maybe because I know that there's a bunch of mixed views on the life plan and whatnot. But I mean, you
can with assimilation you can only change so much, right? It takes a collective to change it to its original design. So did I have a plan? I don't know if it would be necessarily mine or God's. Like, my original plan was I just wanted to come back to save my 2 sons. I knew they were going to kill themselves. They lost their mom and their dad, and they were going down a bad road. And it's sure enough, I was there right at the nick of time, exactly like what I was shown. But then to do that, God asked if I would be willing to do something else. But with the beautiful thing that he said, if you dust in the wind, it'll just fall into place. You'll know when you're there and what's to happen. It would just unfold. And I said yes to that. But I didn't realize, like, I did realize, because as I was getting ready to time travel, you know, I had, like, the entire, like, all the ancients were there and everything, and they were saying with tears in their eyes, you'll go through the exact same thing as all the others before. Do you understand the position of the scapegoat? Like, you will go through the desert, you will go through all these things, even though you're in this place, your physical position on that plane in this time, you will go through all this. And see, I went through that in the idea of the goal to complete the picture that I was given, but never knowing I would be a part of the completion or like the building of it or be even the center of it or anything. I went with it with knowing that I'd probably get everything to the table that needed to get to the table, and I'd fade because I got told I was coming back with this health. So I knew I was coming back with a major challenge. Most people, you know, hear miracles, people come back and they're all of a sudden, everything that was wrong with them is gone. You know, the one thing that's gone, and it's happened on the journey, not when I came back, is the tumor in the back of my head is now gone.
Yeah, I saw that video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that has happened. But that didn't happen. That I had that still when I came back. So, you know, I think if I understood the fullness of what I said and how it would unfold, I don't know if I necessarily would have signed up for it. But what I said yes to, is there a plan? Yes, there always is, but this is how God moves, organically. So it's like there's a design, but he cannot control the fact of if they're going to show up. So like, did God give me a bunch of people that I'm supposed to go and be present around and be there and leave a seed? Yes. And are certain ones of them, if they grab the seed, are supposed to come and be a part of what's being presented and created for God's people and all these people that have been crying out for this, then, you know, then yeah, they'll come. But there's free will.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we have the free will when we become dust in the wind, we still have the will to turn around and go, nah, I ain't gonna do that one. Right?
Yeah.
That's why I said we can feel the fire any minute if we want to. That's the freedom. Even when God returned me, God don't know if when I get down there if I'm going to walk it out.
What about this, though? Whenever we do let go, would you say that we are being pushed in the direction that we're supposed to be?
Yeah, it's like dust in the wind. That's
Yeah.
why I say it's like, you know, you just have dust sitting on the ground. That wind comes in. It's, whoop, there you are. And if the wind stops and you ain't meant to go anywhere, you ain't going anywhere. I got stuck in Texas for almost 2 months with nothing. It was a herd of cattle across the highway that had to stop me. And now that person that I was supposed to sue, which would have left me probably not in the circumstances I've been in, I couldn't sue them. We're friends. And we do all kinds of things together. And like half the time they're one of the people that encourages me when I'm ready to just say, screw this, white flag, take me home, I'm done. I quit, you know.
Yeah.
Because we get that way, even in the awakening. That's the thing is people like, if I have a moment, oh man, you ever notice it? If you are that person, you finally get there, but then all of a sudden there's just that person just doesn't stop, you know, and it just, the boundary thing keeps getting going, and then you all of a sudden have a snap, and they finally see that line come out of you.
Oh, yeah.
Holy man, does the world ever line up to come and be a target against you? Because they're like, wait, what we were used to you being perfect, you just all of a sudden told someone to fuck off for a second.
Yeah.
Like, but the thing is, if you pay attention, I only do that when they actually deserve it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, this is more than 3 strikes now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, there is a limit. Even God's going to say, well, what are you doing? You don't walk into a hurricane, you're going to get hurt. You know, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, there's this image, and I think the internet is a lot to blame for this, because now with the internet, all anybody wants to do is just be famous. So they'll just jump and latch onto any little bandwagon they can. And like in the spiritual community, the bandwagon is, to be awakened and whatnot, is to be this perfect little fluffy duffy light and rainbows and this and that, and and the position that I'm taking is like, yeah, there's a time and a place for that, but this is real life,
right?
And being awakened and humble doesn't mean that you're a doormat for people to mistreat.
Exactly. I was talking a little bit about that, like even like, okay, like most of us, if we're not awakened, we don't comprehend that there's more than just, this is skin. This is the avatar for this environment. Yes, there are those that are definitely the human, and that's what they are, but there's others that are here in human form. And that's something that, the world kind of goes, what? But if we would pay attention to that, we'd realize that, we all fit into these different categories. And there's ones that are specifically always from the get-go designed. They're light workers. They're what in the heavenlies, in religion, we call angels. So the religious have painted this picture of these little fluffy light things. Hey, no, man. Kick ass galactic roar, rip your face off if you're not getting it. Like, so when you are like, and that's the thing, like some of my shaman friends, man, they're the most peaceful, calm people, but man, you go down the wrong road and you'll just see this lion rise up and they go, but it's not hurtful. This is truth. But this human skin takes truth as hurt. You notice that? When you rise up and you're actually, if you look back at what you're saying, and if you were to hit record and rewind it and play it for people, and you could level the tone out, that they would go, oh wait, I don't know what I'm at. Because really, when you're speaking out, it's all truth. Usually, especially when you're awoke and you're not going to go sit and lie to somebody. There's no point of that. It's a waste of time. So that truth, if we would pay attention, truth and love, it pierces way more than fear, darkness, and it's not fluffy. Yeah. At all. Yeah. Think about your awakening. Was that fluffy?
No.
I can't think of anything being fucking fluffy for me.
No.
I felt like my skin got melted into a pile of goo, and I was nothing. Like, I could see how a Buddhist wanted the image of this drop of water. That's what you really just become, a pool of nothing. Yeah, I surrender. So,
my awakening was 2 suicide attempts. I was revived from death the first time, stuck in a mental hospital the second time. Then I lost everything, went homeless, lived under a bridge, almost starved to death, almost froze to death. And then that was my awakening. It wasn't nothing fluffy about it,
No fluffy in that.
Yeah.
And you don't come out with little fluffy wings after that either. Yeah. You're like a lion standing there, or an eagle, or you're like, let's go. It's this clarity that hits, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know where everybody got this idea of this little fluffy thing, because I feel like I'm a tornado.
Yeah.
Yes, but this tornado can have peace, but when I see injustice, or I feel like something needs to be spoken, oh man, I'll speak it like thunder and lightning. I won't hold back.
That's what we got to do. That's why I take the position that I've taken because like I said, my career was an accident.
Yeah.
I never sat down and
stumbling upon it, the dust in the wind effect, right?
Yeah. I remember when my YouTube channel first started blowing up. Well, of course, I had been putting videos on my channel for about a year out of boredom. I would just be bored.
My son did that.
Yeah. And then I started running out of stuff to talk about. And I was like, well, I wonder what would happen if I put a couple of them little tarot card readings on my channel.
Yeah.
Just something to play with on my days off. And then it blew up.
Yeah.
And then after that, everything started happening in my life perfectly to where I'm backed into a corner with nothing but my YouTube channel as my only source of income. And I'm like, I don't want to do this though. This tarot card shit is stupid. It's stupid,
This is for children.
Yeah.
I can do this without the cards.
Yeah. But I kept hearing this little voice in the back of my head saying, I need you here. And I'm like, I don't want to do this though. But then I started thinking, okay, well, I'm here for a reason. What can I do with this? So that's when I started thinking, you know what? who's eating this shit up the most? The most broken, spiritually dead people who are just so lost. They're the ones who are eating this shit up. So I'm going to start planting little seeds of truth.
Yeah.
You know, so hopefully it may be 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, it'll bloom into something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I've taken the position that I have with the audience that I've amassed on the internet, because like you got to be in touch with your inner guidance system, because there's so many people out there that don't give a shit if you are awake. All they care about is their popularity and their money.
Yeah, money seems to be the biggest drive people have.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time. Like, it's funny. I even have people go off and say, "Oh, God gave gold and all this." I'm like, okay, gold. Yes, but it was actually meant as a conductor for electricity and helping things in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when the world comes to removing all of this system, can you seriously tell me that someone's going to want to carry around a bunch of gold to go hand off to someone for a cup of water?
Yeah.
I'm going to own the water. You can come get the cup of water.
Yeah.
You know, like, we don't even know what our valuable resources are anymore, and it's so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
We're running after the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's the thing about the system, because a part of my journey too, I will be the first to admit, the first thing I set out to learn how to do was manifest money.
That's fine. We're allowed to manifest that because it's the system we're in. I'm just saying, when we put it as the God,
right,
as the goal, it's the only thing.
Yeah, and this is the interesting part of my journey, though, is that I ended up stumbling across and linking up with somebody who is very closely tied with global elites on the dark side.
I've been down that road.
And this person taught me the actual science of how manifestation works. And that's where I learned that when it comes to money or gold or whatever the case may be, the only thing that makes it valuable is our perception of
Bingo.
it. Because one of the things he said is monopoly money is only worthless when you're not playing Monopoly. When you're playing Monopoly, fights break out over Monopoly money with family members.
Yeah.
Because your perception is what gives it its value.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And then you look out at this world, and the whole this is just one big Monopoly game. And how do we get the people? Because you look out and you see all these people, I do, who are enslaved by their own mind.
Yeah, big time.
And don't they want out of that?
You'd think, but it's like they're scared to get out of that because they don't want to look beyond what's in front of them. They just want to see what's been the repeat of what's in front of them. But I think there's ones out there that truly, truly do want it, you know, and they'll grab onto it and they'll run out with it. But I've noticed a lot of people want to run away from even looking at it could be further. And they're still wanting to be enslaved by this old system way of thinking. But that's the thing, what he said is true. It's the value of what you put on it. That's why I'm like saying we put these things on them. We say it's God or we say it's this and that. I guess you could say it's God, because if that's the value you're putting on, you are that God. So there you go. You put the value on that. But I don't think it's in that. It's just a tool. It's just a piece of energy that's in this system. That is how you move around in the system right now.
I will admit, too, though, that where I'm kind of lingering in my journey, because I don't believe the journey ever ends, is that I get...
No, it don't. And I know all its stuff, and I still am on the journey.
Yeah, I get that it's just a big game. I've awakened to the fact that it's a game, but drawing a clear picture in my mind of what we will eventually have when the game is gone, I'm having a hard time picturing that. You know, I think that's probably because they say they did a little study where they, you know, gave people a survey. Most people, if you imagine that you're stranded on a desert island, knowing that you're going to die, about 99% of people would rather stay there on the island knowing they're going to die than venture out into the unknown.
And that's exactly what we're looking at. Think about it. We're stuck in this simulation, in this arc, soaring through, and, you know, we are perceiving everything to be this. This has now become comfortable because we've created this. We've created it to become comfortable for ourselves. It was meant to be paradise till we got to New Earth. And we end up shaken assimilation because we like to do that, and we're a bunch of 2-year-olds that like to kick and do the opposite of what, mom and dad suggest. But you become comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
like people even on the street. I've worked with homeless, and you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a place where you're like, well, fuck it, that's it, and you get comfortable.
Mm-hmm. I started getting comfortable.
You get terrified to leave that, ripped up tent on the side of the road or whatever, even though everything's being offered to you in front of you, to the point where you'll set your tent up in the house that you're being offered.
Yeah.
You don't know what to do. We become comfortable. So if you've been soaring through the universe for so long, you become comfortable with this hell, and you finally get light. It says, come out. You do one of two things.
Well, that's the thing that I learned on the streets. I remember the first day I was officially homeless. There was a homeless community, and I actually had some family members living on the streets too. They said, all right, we're going to take you under our wing. We're going to make sure you survive on the streets. Let's go get you a bed. So we went to an apartment complex dumpster. I had to jump in and grab a couch cushion and a blanket. And they said, all right, we're going to give you your spot. They had up under a viaduct. It was literally under a bridge. And they said, okay, you can have this spot right here. I laid my bed down. I laid down. I looked up at the bottom of that bridge, and I was crushed. I was devastated. I was like, how did I end up here? Fast forward 3 months, I'm sitting in that same spot, sipping on a half gallon of vodka. And I went, whoa, I'm becoming comfortable with this. This is now my new norm. But rather than take the stance that everybody else was taking, who will straight up blatantly tell you, I don't want to get out of this lifestyle, I said to myself, well, if I can become comfortable doing this, I can become comfortable doing anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's just like this fire that burns inside of me to try to help people understand that. And I'm in this place now where I'm wondering, does anybody really want out of it? Because at first I thought, like me, I wanted out of it. I want to know what the truth is. But I'm starting to wonder, do people, because if they don't want out of it, what can you do?
Nothing you can do. You have to let it go. That's the one thing I've learned. Like, that's why it's like in this kind of place, you have a lot of loss. A lot of loss. I've had a lot of friends walk out, but they were the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, not when I was going through it. It hurt like crazy. And I almost just stepped away from everything I was doing and said, no, I'm not doing this. Pass this cup for me. I quit. And the thing is, God would let you do that. Just whether you can live with yourself. It's the question, right? But those were brief moments. I didn't stick with them ever. They were really brief moments. Usually when I got to that place, I always ended up going off to the mountains, spending time in meditation, just where it was quiet, no influence, so I could get clarity, and then I'd be back on track again. But I honestly am not certain people do want to wake up. I've even brought people to a place where they could see things that would be like a smack to the face, and they wouldn't have any reason to doubt. And they won't even come, They wouldn't even come to that door. They wouldn't even peek in. But then there's those that do, and they come lining up too. But I would say the numbers that are there and ready and willing to let go and willing to jump in, they're few. Very few.
Since you got a clear view and understanding of the simulation that we're in, would you say, do you agree with the idea or the belief that within this simulation there are dark entities that can attach themselves to you?
Definitely dark entities. And I mean, we can also create those dark entities to come before you too, if that makes any sense. So there's like almost like a yin and yang of ourselves, right? So just there's like a Jesus and then there's a Satan in both of us, and we get to make that decision because we're in a fallen. So there's like this divided thing, right? That's why I always say, one hand reaches across to another to unite the perfect circle, because as we reach across, we hang on, we're removing that, we're saying no to that atmosphere, right? So if you think about, if you put an animal or a fish or whatever into an atmosphere, and you put that, say, we'll go for a fish. Say you put a saltwater fish into what? Lake water. How's that fish going to be? It's going to get affected by that environment. It's going to die. It's going to be choked out. It's not very often that you will ever hear of a saltwater fish just turning around and starting to survive in the water, right? And we're like that. We think about that situation. We're like that peel of that good and bad. But we can't live in both. But we are. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh.
We're not supposed to live in both. But we are right now. So think of those energies. If you look at frequencies, like if you ever look at frequencies and how they expand, so if you look at the joy frequency, you can even do MRIs on a brain, all of that, and you put joy into like that situation, you watch the expansion of the frequencies. They're massive, right? And then you see where fear comes in, and watch the frequencies, and they just come in like this thing that just almost like comes around the body. And that's not good. So in that is an entity of an energy. There's a positive and negative. Now when they're flowing right, the positive and negative make this beautiful union. Beautiful energy flows, right? You get power, you get sources. So there you are in this cycle that we're in, stuck in between, in a not flowing proper system. It's off balance. Fear is here. Love is here. Now you have electricity in those two. And you don't combine them properly. Now what you have is an energy that becomes a mind of its own, which is an entity. So your thoughts are put into that entity. Your fears go into that entity, and therefore that entity is created, and that entity attaches itself to you. Because the truth is, it's only you and God. All these other people are just part of the simulation. They're a part of your design that you've created to go through this experience that you're in. So it's you and God. So if that's just you and God, and then this game, and then all these things, characters that are playing in this game, like the Truman Show, then is there an entity that's hopping into your pod? It's pretty sealed. But is it on the outside? And is it speaking in? And did it gain its power from whatever negative fuel you got?
Wow. So I never even thought about it that way. So it's
still an illusion, but still real.
So from outside the pod, that's where it comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. So if you think about it, okay, here's some understanding of ghosts. So if you're on an arc and then you're in this simulation, right, and you're within this image, because if you think of VR, right, you're within this pod's image. You're in that, you got this world, right, and you got these things that now you've projected. That's why, in Matrix, they're like, it's a spoon, because you think it's a spoon. You put solidifying energy to that spoon. Your brain convinced yourself this is the images, right? Have you ever played those VR games? You start to feel like you're gonna fall. Your body. I've actually fallen on that game. I went to one of these, I don't know, Wonderland things in Canada where they do rides, and I had the VR on me, and all of a sudden there's a scene where you go off the cliff, and I literally, my body was freaking out. I was flailing like it was really happening, and my kids were laughing their ass off. And if there wasn't a thing in front of me that allowed me not to go right on my face, I would have gone on my face. My face went into the thing that's there for you. They were probably built that for people like us. Because that was so real. And I thought about that, and that's probably the best way to describe things to people. You're in that VR. That is so real to you that you fall, or you physically flail when you're doing, or you're sitting there doing physical moves. Now step out of that for a second. That was pretty real. You even felt everything. You were in that same situation. Were all those things there in front of you? Or was it just a playing frame? In that box, when you're in that VR, it's just you in that VR and that program. So people have to think about that way, which then allows you to kind of be able to see a little clearer. So a ghost, they're out of their pod. They're running around the ship. They've done their time. If they did not come back here, if they did not revert into another person's body and have another experience, and especially in this season, most are not reverting back here right now. So they're up there getting ready for what's about to come. So if that's the case, and they like to peek in on this place, there's your ghosts. And if they're angry, they might shake your world up a little bit. So think about that. There's a process. Like, there's echoes that happen in assimilation, and some of them are just people think as a ghost. It's just the assimilation echoing something that happened and you're seeing it. But when something walks in and moves something and makes an attention, or if this family member trying to speak out, chances are that person did not come back here. And they're there. And they can walk in and out. We know where your pods are. We can hover over them. But we're not even really there. That's why it's like this shimmering image. Because we're not inside that pod. We're not inside that simulation. We're outside of the simulation speaking in. And that energy forces its way through and comes into the appearance because you heard an energy that connected to you in a memory, and therefore your memory puts them as a haze because your body and mind goes, they're dead.
Wow.
But if you didn't see that way, guess what? They would show up just like you and I. Because you would then see that they're not,
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
I've never heard it put like that before.
Makes sense though, don't
It makes better sense than anything I've ever heard.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the things. And I mean, that's the thing that I've told people. They're like, why didn't you speak before? 2.5 years. I mean, process all of it. Process an entire universe. That's billions of years of information. And everyone asks if I've read a book. No, I really suck at reading.
Same here.
I have dyslexia, and I read, but it's got to be because I really want to read it, and I have to work my ass off to do it. I have to do that with business and read stuff and do things with formulas all the time. Do you think I'm going to take the time when I get home from doing whatever my work I do to just pick up a book and read it? No. So no, I haven't read any of these books that are out there that people keep saying that you just read so many books. And as far as movies, I watched tons of TV when it was back in being a kid. And once I kind of became a parent, I mean, unless I got my information from VeggieTales or like stuff like that, I barely watched TV. And Survivor. You know, me and my husband would watch Survivor. That's what we would do. But I've never been much of like getting stuck onto shows unless it was hanging out with a crowd. So I didn't get my information from shows. If you want to take it back from all the 80s shows, yeah, sure. But most of those 80s shows, pay attention. Look at what's going on right now. They were like telling the future or something.
Yeah.
I remember Back to the Future. We got hoverboards now.
Yeah. That's cool because most of the people, when you hear that they've had a near-death experience, they only go so far. And there's only one other person that I've met who, the way she refers to it is she stepped outside of the game altogether. But even the one common denominator you hear with everybody is they can't put words to it.
Oh, there's so much I can't put words to. It's been interesting. I've noticed just recently. It's weird though. If someone asks me a question, and if it was a question they're supposed to ask or something, all of a sudden I got this information there and I'm going, where's record? Can we just, holy shit, where did this all, and it's just there. So there's sometimes stuff that I thought I couldn't put into words, but then all of a sudden the right person asks the right question and the words are there.
Well, so far, like that right there is explained in more understandable words than I've ever heard before.
Yeah.
You know, like I've just never really heard it broken down that way, you know?
I don't know. I don't know how I'm able to do it lately, but it seems to be able to be, I've been able to break it down for people a little bit more. And I don't know if it's just because of the time taken to listen, meditate or travel and see, and maybe listening to people and hearing, you know, words that maybe would be ways I could put what I experienced into words. And it's slowly coming, you know. it's like I said, it took 2.5 years to even get to this place. And I just listen. That's the only thing I can do is listen. She's falling asleep. Is listen. And when I listen and I let my body receive what's there, then it seems to just flow, you know?
Mm-hmm.
As long as I don't try and figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. And again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, how it was your time. It kind of feels, it would, if I didn't know that, I would swear that this was your job.
I know so many people say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it just, I mean, I guess it's slowly, naturally becoming my job in a sense, but I don't know. You know, it's just, when I first came back, I would say I didn't know what to do with it all, or how to do it, or how to express it. And I mean, I was friends with people that could have helped me express it. Like, I mean, major theologians, billionaire guys that could have probably got the messages out there and helped me even be able to get into better clarity. But those guys walked away, you know, and they were the ones who watched me die too. So God showed me something with that, which was, I mean, I watched what would have been my funeral and everything. So I got to see truths that I didn't even know were there. And I mean, I left my entire, like what I'm building right now, and what I'm creating right now, I left all of that to them. And I had formulas and everything already there. So they had a lot to gain from my death if they did something with it. Because I know that, because right now we're doing something with it and it's going boom. So when I got to see that, it was pretty hard. But it helped me get to the place of being willing to be separated from all things other than just listening. And which is what got me on the road, which got me, you know, I could have just, I mean, coming out of hospice, paying for your funeral, I had nothing anymore. I had nothing. So I pretty much was, I just had the vehicle.
They kept the money for the funeral? It never happened?
Yeah, it's paid for.
That's shitty.
Yeah.
But it never happened.
I know.
Damn, man.
You don't get your money back. It just sits there. I have a really nice paid for funeral. And it's weird too, because I was going to be separated into 4 different urns, which is so weird. I don't know, but whatever. I can change that, but it's paid for. Like, you can't get your money back. It's not one of those kind of funerals. I think there's funeral plans you can pay for that, you know, you can get your money back on it or whatever. But then there's funerals that you pay for and it's done. Well, I was in hospice, so you're going to do the done.
Yeah, but then it wasn't done, so it's like, what the fuck?
I didn't know. That's when I went, wow, there went a lot of money.
Damn.
I got rid of my home, everything. Like, I mean, actually, it's crazy. I have this friend. We're not really friends right now. We decided not to. That was the one thing. Like, I came back so different. I even have a younger son that's still struggling because he's very religious now, and he just wants to shout out, you know, where he believes. And I'm saying, son, I haven't walked away from faith of God or any of that. Like, we were super tight. I just can't be in organized religion or be that position. And so for him, I've now become everything opposite of what he was raised to do. And he wasn't religious. He was at a different place before, but he became very religious. And so he's separated, where he just sends messages, I love you, Mom. But he won't do the talks on the phone call. And that's what he does when he's trying to figure out what he believes and what he stands for, so that when he comes and talks, he can get it out and make sure that I understand what he's saying, because he wants me to believe the same, right? But those losses were hard. I could have just gone and been the mold that everyone wants you to be and fit in, but I couldn't, because of what I knew I had to go on this journey to be able to express to people this message. It is important. Us waking up is so important, because being in what we're doing right now, we're self-destructing. We're destroying ourselves in this assimilation and everything else. We're allowing so much to control us, and we're fueling the thing that's controlling us on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so God's like, enough is enough. We're almost home and I don't need my children acting like this. And so how do you do that? Well, you come. You take the ones that, that's the same thing. Like, if everyone wants to talk about religion, well, Jesus was real. So is in history. Yes, Jesus was real, but guess what? It was a human who was allowed to take the fullness of God in human form, just like it says in the description. But you've placed this human into a position of an idol. God is not male nor female. That was just God's essence that went into that position, into that body. Horus did the same thing, and there's others that did the same thing, that they got into that position, that they were the dust in the wind. And they're willing to do the sacrifice, even if it meant they got killed for it. To say the things that no one's willing to say, even if it meant the system shuts them all down and takes everything away from them. And that's all God was looking for. So when God finds that vessel, God will go, okay, boom. And so that's the Jesus story is real. Yes, that happened. Yes, God came in the fullness. Yes, we murdered God in that human form many times over. Because God keeps coming into the simulation going, okay, 2-year-olds, can you stop sticking the finger into the socket? Oh my goodness, they're going to blow up they made these bombs. And the whole time God's like, would you guys remember that a few of you came and decided to create your own world and thought you were proud of yourselves and you created all these sicknesses and everything. You already blew up your earth once. So you're going to blow up a simulation now, Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. It's this attention shaker. So is it one person? No, there's several that have taken, look at you. You got to this dust in the wind. You allowed this place where you're like, but I don't want to do this, but you allowed the place to do it. So that's God coming in that essence and that fullness. That's why when you start walking in it, you get these vibrations all over your body and you're like, holy crap, I'm saying things I didn't know existed. Mm-hmm. Well, because God just encapsulated you. God's speaking now. You allowed that. That's the point, because we are that. We were never separated from that moment. And if we would all recognize when we've all hit those moments. It was brilliant businessmen. I'm sure even Steve Jobs creating what he created. He hit a moment where his whole body was vibrating. And the wisdom and information that came was like unbelievable. And they put it into place. And what he did with it after is a whole other game. That's always the thing, right? See, that free will comes, and we could keep walking in that and encapsulate that moment when God takes that place in your life. And you keep going with it, or you can go back to the place we take control. Just like you can right now with your awakening, right? You could go right in there in Vegas, right in there, and do the opposite of everything that would even allow you to go home, make you happy with your wife or anything. Like, you could blow your whole world up right now in a second. And so that's the freedom. And that's why when people go, well, God allowed this, or why God do this? No, you did this. And that's what I'm trying to get people to wake up. Could you realize you did all this? Everything in front of you is you. Even the friends who walked away, even the friends who like my friends who sat there and watched me die, that's on me. I chose to hang out with that. I threw my pearls before swine. I chose to become a victim. I chose to allow a bit to be in my mouth. I chose to believe things being spoken that are not from me. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's where God is like shaking that up. And he's saying, he, God is not one or the other. But what God's saying is that people, don't be afraid. Because this is the hell. And this is the illusion you created. This is not me. And I love you so much that I'll jump into every one of you. Even if it's for a brief moment, you only let me in, kick me out after, just to show you that we are the same. That we are it. And you already have all those answers right now. So you can probably think of many times when you were a child having those moments. Yeah. So that's why, like I always say to people, it's no one's greater than the other. We all have that ability to encapsulate the fullness. It's just, do we want to? And that's where your question, do we really want to?
Yeah. And that leads me to wonder, like you were saying, that we're headed to a new planet. Well, is it possible for us to get there and nobody be where we need to be? What would happen then?
That's the question that I don't even have the answer to, because it's not like something it wasn't something God showed me.
No.
But I did get told that someone remained asleep. And I think the image that I've understood in that image was that it's like staying asleep in a pod. You're in a new place, but you don't even know you're not even aware of it. You're walking in a format of a zombie. So the rest of us that are awake and could be on the new earth and have the fullness and experiencing everything, but there could be those, no idea, still in this.
Is the new earth part of the simulation too?
Is it part of the simulation?
Yeah, like, are you still in the pod in a simulation, or do you
No.
completely exit? And
We would be on it. It's literally like we even get to have the expressions of being in our original forms, or we can stay in these forms. So we can be in our original design, like what we actually look like, or we can be. And this is the place that's preparing us to be in a union. That's why it's like so many species, but yet in one form. So that we get comfortable. And if you notice in this season, all of a sudden you get those that are coming out and saying, you know those fantasies you wrote about? I am that. And you're watching them even show their abilities as they do that. So in a sense, we're beginning to walk in the new earth position even now, even here. Is it a simulation? I mean, it's a creation. So you could call it another simulation. The perfected original design simulation. Is it a solid ground? It is. But it was also created. So it depends what our idea of a simulation is now. Because even this simulation is a creation of something solid too, because it still has these things that have the images projecting, right? So I don't even know how to answer that one.
no, that's cool. That's cool. I'm just trying to dig and poke, but it is.
Yeah, we've been going for a while.
Yeah, it is about time for me to start heading to the house.
All right.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and get out of here. Greatly appreciate you doing this interview. It was awesome to meet you.
You too.
And you all have a good day.
Take care. Peace.